Hi again, it's me. A lot of breath. I'm trying to get this whole professional Hollywood thing down. I'm not doing all that great a job. In fact, the last video that I uploaded, I was talking about safety. Became kind of a dissertation, I guess, on that to get long-winded. Didn't realize until I started making these videos, but there's something to be said for that, I guess, right? Oh, plus I have to speak up a little because I have the camera about 10 feet away, maybe 9 feet away. Carpenters are pretty good with distance. And I went to upload the video to iTunes, the last one, and I'd gone over. I was like, well, in my imagination I'd gone over. I think I have a 10-minute upload limit, but I'm not really sure. So now I'm trying to upload it to YouTube. It was 13 minutes and 38 seconds or something. It's a big file. And it's still stuck at 5%, and it's showing 136 minutes to upload it. I don't know what that's all about. Maybe I'm in trouble. I'm going to have to split the video. But I brought this down here. I don't want the computer to go to sleep and not continue with the process. Well, some tech guy out there probably going to say, oh, that doesn't happen, but I don't know that much about computers. Okay, so my MacBook is sitting here. I don't normally have it in the woodworking area. It's too dusty, and I'll take it out of here before I start doing any real work, which I'd like to get to. But I forgot to mention a few things before on the last video. So, really quickly, I was talking about the Dickies and all that. I wear a cheap old belt when I'm doing carpentry work or woodworking. And it helps. I don't want to use a good belt, it's just going to wreck it, but something to clip a tape onto. And speaking of tapes, for years I used the Stanley Power Lock, and it came with this. Finally, they redesigned it with this wide blade that probably can't see, but you can go out pretty far with this when you're on a job and you're trying to measure something, and the tape will extend without breaking, without snapping like that, for a pretty good distance. But for some reason, they never did figure out how to keep the ends from bending. I've got 100 of these things hanging around. I constantly have to rebend the ends because once the tab on the end gets bent, it distorts your measurement. And if you're doing cabinet work, that can be a problem depending on exactly what you're doing. And the other thing is they make these doggone clips that spin around. You would think that after all these years they could figure out how to do a clip that doesn't spin around. You go to hook it on your belt and you're like, okay, enough of the comedy routine, because that's what it becomes. Saw blades and power saws. I talked about safety. Never stand behind a pile. I'll show this when I start actually cutting the material. This is a piece of birch plywood, cabinet plywood, that I just put onto the table. I'm going to get set up to start cutting some pieces for the cabinet work I'm doing. But never stand behind a saw, directly behind a saw when you're using it, because this thing can kick back depending on the power of the saw, throw it back into your body, and don't want to think about the rest. Plenty of guys have had it go across their legs, and well, there are some pretty dumb guys out there, I think. Can't imagine that happening to me, but maybe just thought that the remote possibility is enough to make me very safety conscious. I always use extremely sharp saw blades when I'm doing cabinet work. Now, there is no shortcut. You can buy a cheap blade with a sharp tooth on it, maybe even a cheaper carbide-tipped blade. But the key is to have a really good blade, and if you're cutting cabinet plywood with a piece of portable equipment like I'm going to, have a lot of teeth. Well, even if it's a table saw, the more teeth and the more little carbide tips on them, it's going to make a cleaner cut. I tend to buy much more expensive blades. I strongly believe in good equipment. That's why I bought the MacBook. Am I going to sleep yet? Okay. What was I saying? These can be pricey. So for the average guy, you might not want to do it. This one's $55 for an 8 1/4 inch blade, which I'm going to put into the saw beam. I hope it fits the saw. Is it 8 1/4? Oh my. Yeah, I've got different ones here. I've got a whole stack of these things. Yeah, this is 8 1/4. Why is this saw? I think this saw usually is 7 1/4. Well, if it doesn't fit, I'll put one of the other ones. I've got a nice one here with a 7 1/4. It's another Makita. Oh, this is a Makita. This is a Mitsubishi. Mitsushita, yeah. It's a thin kerf, which means a very thin blade, so when it cuts through the material, you're not going to get that much debris, and it just tends to make for more chip-free cut and a cleaner cut. So, and it's very stiff the way they temper the metal. It doesn't wobble in the cut, so that you end up with all these chips flying, and you wreck the piece that you're cutting. But again, if you use a blade too long, it's just going to chip out. You look at the teeth very carefully, you'll see that the little piece of carbide are missing, or it's like deformed. No good for this kind of thing. You might want to save it for cutting something else if it still cuts. Do the same thing with my table saws and any other chop saws that I use, and it's a good policy. Okay. I brought my alarm clock down here. Now this is getting really high tech, I'm telling you. My alarm clock with the hand that doesn't work for the alarm. I never use an alarm clock. I always wake up at whatever time I dream up before I go to bed. For some reason, I've always been like that. But try to keep an eye on the time, because that last video, I'm still skeptical. Oh, wow. Hey, wait a minute. Suddenly it's uploading. 25%. Woohoo! And it's only 104 minutes left. It's the longest I've ever seen. Usually 20 minutes or so. Anyway, back to the project. This is a piece of 3/4 inch birch plywood. This can be pricey too, and I choose birch for 90% of my cabinet construction, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to build a box. A cabinet is not, when you think about it, a cabinet is nothing but a box of different sizes, depending on the cabinet you want to build, with partitions possibly or not, and material that you could finish, especially on the inside, that's going to look nice. And I happen to like the look of birch on the inside of a cabinet. You could actually make it look like cherry and a lot of different woods if you want to stain it. I prefer, and a lot of cabinet makers do, prefer just the look of natural birch, put a clear finish on it, done deal. You know, I've had petty customers, or particular customers, I shouldn't call them petty, they have their own needs and their own desires, and it's fine. Where we'll go with something, you know, I can actually buy cherry cabinet plywood, maple, all the different species. They tend to be more or less expensive. Birch is fairly inexpensive. This sheet, at the going rate, see, I bought this a few months back. It's been sitting here ready for this project. It's probably around $28 to $30. Up here in the Northeast, things tend to be a little pricey. I usually wait for a sale, and I'll buy about 8 of these. I'm going to buy a couple $100 worth and keep them in storage. If I can get them for, you know, $22 a sheet, I'll tell you, it pays to be frugal, or not, depending on, you know, your space concerns, where you can store stuff. Anyway, this piece, I'm getting ready to cut it from the top with my, once I take this blade out of the saw, the wrench here, I'll put a good, really sharp blade in it. I'm going to cut it from the top. So what I've done is oriented the board so that the good face is underneath, because the circular saw, the blade goes in counterclockwise direction. Wait a minute. No, I'm wrong. It's that way with my table saw. It's the other way with the circular saw. But it's going to pull, the blade is going to pull up underneath the material, and the cleaner cut, even though these blades are going to cut very clean, especially on a long cut with the grain, the cleaner cut is going to be on the bottom side of the board. So I've taken and looked at this piece of birch ply, and I like the bottom. That's the part I want to appear inside the cabinet. And that's the only part that's really going to show in the cabinet I'm building. The outside is going to be dressed in a different way, and trust me, the way this project is being done, the good part that the part that I want to be clean and nice looking is going to be the inside. The outside I'm going to be dealing with in a different manner, and I'll show you later. Once the box is made, the backing is put on, and then I'll build a separate face frame. This is a custom cabinet building. I already have my space considerations. I've drawn a little plan so I know what, you know, how long the cabinet's going to be, the height, and all the other dimensions I'm working out. That's really important. Before you start cutting, to make a list, running short of time, I only got about a minute. Make a list of all of your dimensions, do your math before you start your cutting. It's expensive material, relatively speaking. You don't want to destroy a whole sheet of birch trying to cut something and you find out you're 3/4 of an inch short, or half an inch, or whatever. Even a 1/4 of an inch can screw you up. Okay, well, I'm going to cut the video short at this point, and it looks like we're doing a good job on the upload for some reason. Maybe everybody went offline, got frustrated, and I'm the only one uploading. I doubt it. And I should start calling myself Garp, because this is Garpenter channel, and Garp is something I got from a movie years ago. World According to Garp. I hope it wasn't a copyrighted name. Probably sued or something. I'll take everything. I don't care. I don't have that much. All right. Gonna shut down, and I'll be talking to you soon when I start the cabinet construction.